Everyone, you're welcome back to the interview series. So in this video, we are going to be discussing about how you're going to plan your lesson. Yes, because if you have been invited for an interview in the diaspora, you will definitely going to do a micro teach. If you're not in that country, you will do a demo teach. You might do a demo teach. So this is what we are going to be discussing today, how you can plan for your lesson, how you can get some resources online that will help you in planning for your lesson. And I have Mr. Gideon back today. He's here. He's a permanent teacher in the United Kingdom. I am Omowumi. I am a licensed teacher in the United Kingdom. And on this channel, we talk about teaching abroad, life abroad. Please like, subscribe to this channel. Share this information for someone that will need this. So, Mr. Gideon, I'll let him introduce himself. He has always done that. But if you're watching this for the first time, we have several series on teaching abroad. We have several series on teaching abroad, live videos on teaching abroad. You can, after this video, you can jump on that and watch those videos.
All right.
Please introduce
Good
yourself,
day,
and
good day,
then dive
everyone.
into the video.
All right. Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. My name is Edmond Gideon. I'm a licensed and a certified teacher in the UK. And just like I do say, I'm just Edmond Gideon. Thank you for watching.
You're welcome. So, like I said, today we are discussing about how to plan a lesson. So, recently I had to go for an interview and I needed to plan a lesson for my interview. I searched a bit on YouTube, online, though I know how I could plan a lesson. Have seen, as a supply teacher, I've seen several lesson plans. I've seen I've used several lesson plans, but planning your own lesson, you still need some guidelines and all that. So I
Yeah.
searched and searched, but I couldn't find enough information. And I said, okay, I need to get a permanent teacher to come and tell my subscribers, my teachers, how you can plan your lesson.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you for the privilege again to come on your show to discuss with people and then to share the knowledge. I really appreciate that, and I'll never take that for granted. Just like I said on the last episode we had about the importance of taking your micro teaching serious for whatsoever interview you've got after you've been shortlisted for any interview in the UK for teaching. Now, just like I said, I would say your micro teaching carries about 70% of what you'll be judged with, which determines whether you'll be successful in that interview or not. So if you are doing your micro teaching in a very good way and you had a very good perfect micro teaching, it goes a long way as regards your applications, whether you'll be successful or not. And then in our last episode, I discussed detailed reasons why your micro teaching is important, and what you need to do, and part of the things you need to do before you start your micro teaching, what to watch out for, what to do during your micro teaching. So I would advise that you subscribe on this channel and then you watch the previous video we had about this particular topic about your passing your interview. We've discussed both. We are going to discuss both the micro teaching and the interview time. So now I want to talk about how to prepare your lesson for the micro teaching. Now, I'm going to highlight some points, at least about 7 to 8 points of what you need to do for your micro teaching. Last episode, I mentioned two things. Schools are different. Schools have different methods for micro teaching. For example, some schools would send you their materials they want you to use for the micro teaching. So during the micro teaching, you are expected to use the materials the school has sent to you for your micro teaching. For example, my own current school make use of a booklet. We don't use PowerPoint. Most schools use PowerPoint during lessons. So for my school, if you've been shortlisted for an interview in my school, you'll be sent the teaching material you'll be teaching with. My school belongs to a trust, and then in the entire trust, we make use of booklet. So the booklet will be sent back to your email for the topic you'll be teaching and the year group you're going to be teaching. So in that booklet, you have all the materials, all the things you need. You don't need to create any PowerPoint. You don't need to create any slides or anything to teach. You just download the
Mm.
booklet, print it out, take it to the classroom, and then you are not reading it as a script, but you're explaining everything, that is present in that booklet. Because in such situation, if you are given a booklet or a teaching material to use, and you are not using it, or let's say if you are sent a material and then you decide to prepare a PowerPoint for yourself, it might be difficult and you might struggle a bit, because I'm going to still use my school as an example. My school students they are so familiar with the use of booklets already. They make use of booklets, so they are familiar with booklets already. So when you come with PowerPoint, it looks strange to them, so you might struggle during your lesson. So one thing you must know is, what kind of school am I working with? Are they making use of booklet? Are they making use of PowerPoint? Because if you're using the wrong thing, the students are not familiar with, you're going to struggle during your lesson. And then, irrespective of your subject knowledge, it's going to be a frustrating one for you, which is going to be bad. So if that is what you are using, let's say you're using the school material, make sure you study how the material can be used prior to the micro teaching, and you should have done your annotations, your preparation and everything on the booklet, such that you have understood everything in that material before you go to that lesson. Now, for those that are using PowerPoint, let's say, for example, the school didn't send you any material to teach with, and then they expect you to prepare your lesson yourself. How do I prepare a very good lesson? How do I prepare a very good PowerPoint that will give me a successful micro teaching during my interview? The first thing I have outlined in my points is define your learning objectives. That's the first thing you must first do. Don't just rush to creating a PowerPoint. Don't rush to going to find a PowerPoint online. What most people do is, when they send them the topic for the micro teaching, they just type the topic online for PowerPoint, and then they download whatever PowerPoint it brings, and then they use it for the micro teaching. That won't work. That won't work. So the first thing is, clearly state what students will learn and be able to do after the lesson. What do you want the students to learn? For example, you were given a topic for let's say, for example, you are given photosynthesis. You're being asked to teach photosynthesis. Now, clearly state what the students will learn and what they should be able to do after the lesson. That is very, very important. You get what I'm trying to say? So divining the learning objectives is very important in whatsoever lesson planning you are doing. So before you start creating the PowerPoint, write out the objectives yourself, such that when you are creating the PowerPoint, every slide you're creating are aligning with the objectives you've written down while you are creating the slides, such that after you're done, when you're done with the PowerPoint, you can be rest assured that all the objectives you've outlined before the PowerPoint creation have been successfully matched. I hope that makes sense. So that's the first thing to do while preparing for a micro teaching interview, when you are preparing your lesson. The second thing is access prior knowledge. You must access prior knowledge. Determine what students already know about the topic to build upon their existing understanding. And that is a point I called retrieval question. Your first page, the first page of your PowerPoint must include the date, the topic, the keywords. Those three things must be on your first page. Don't just put the topic alone on the first page of your PowerPoint. No, that's wrong. Make sure it includes the date, the topic, and the keywords. At least you must have at least 3 keywords on your first page. The keywords might be tier 2 or tier 3 keywords. You may search that if you do not understand what tier 2 or tier 3 keywords means. I might not have that time to explain tier 2, tier 3 terms in your lesson plan now. For me, if I'm teaching, my keywords, I always have about 5 tier 2 keywords on my front page for students to relate with while we're going on with the teaching. And then the next page after that must be retrieval question.
Yes.
And the retrieval question is your access to prior knowledge. There's no topic without a prior knowledge. I want us to get that straight. So there must be at least, for me in my classes, you might not do the same thing I'm doing, but I'm just saying it should be part of the ingredients of your lesson plan. You must have at least 3 to 5 retrieval questions on the next page after the introductory page. So the retrieval question is to determine what the students already know about the topic you want to teach, and also to build upon their existing understanding. Sorry. So that is very important in lesson plan. And then with the retrieval question, you would be able to determine whether they have good understanding about the topic or they do not. And this retrieval question can be, it can be done formatively for assessing. Because they might not get all the questions correctly. In fact, they might not get any of the questions correctly.
Yeah.
Because you are not their previous teacher. You don't know how well they've taught them. You just want to use it as a measure, as a scale to measure their understanding on the topic you're about to teach them. So don't be discouraged, don't be embarrassed, don't feel strange if they don't get any of the question correctly. There's this feeling some of us do have when we are doing our retrieval question, and it seems as if, so you don't know any of this question. No, don't let that derail you. Don't let that demoralize you, thinking you are working with low-level students. No. You're just doing it so that you can access and determine what they already know about the topic, and to also build on their existing understanding. And then the third thing is choose engaging resources. So select relevant and engaging materials. So your materials must be relevant and engaging. Please note the word engaging.
You must catch their attention.
You must engage them. You are not there to just teach and start talking from A to Z. No. When you teach them A, access them on the A before you move to B. You must engage them. And that is where your teaching philosophy and your teaching pedagogy comes into place. So your teaching policy is being tested at that point. And that is why you have observers at the back or at the front of your classroom looking at how you are engaging the students with your relevant materials.
Yeah.
So I think I told someone who went for interview recently, and I said, see, when you get there, don't just start reading from the PowerPoint. You're not reading to them from the screen and say, okay, this is the ability to do this. No. You're not reading from your screen. You're explaining what is already on the screen to them. Because you are not just reading, you're not casting news. It's not a script for you to read through. It's just a relevant material to guide you on each step of that lesson. Because you are building the lesson progressively. It's progressive. And it's from one level to another. So it's not a script to read and cast news to them. It's to show the progression in that particular lesson.
Yeah.
So make sure your material is relevant. If you are to define a term, define it in a simple term. Make sure the definition is relevant to the topic, not something outside the topic. For example, I was observing someone's lesson during an interview, and then the person was asked to talk about the nervous system. And then part of the materials the person was explaining after the retrieval question is not relevant to the topic. And that is why I mentioned the word progressive. You are teaching nervous system, and then your first slide is talking about synapses, or you're talking about something that you don't need to talk about yet. I think the
Yet.
first thing to do is to build up knowledge from the first part, not just
Exactly.
jump to the end.
The students will be confused.
They'll be confused. You're talking about different nerve cells and everything, and then you've not told them what is the function of this, how does this work, what is the meaning of this. Let it be progressive. After the retrieval questions, you're starting from the very low part of that lesson
Yes.
before you progress and before you move forward. And then the material must be relevant and engaging. That's why I said before you move to B, make sure you explain A, assess them on the A. Make sure they understand A before you move to B. So when you are preparing your lesson, choose relevant and engaging materials such as text. You might have images on your slide.
Yeah.
Images. And for example, if you're lucky to be teaching Key Stage 3, you can put attracting images, things will catch their attention.
Yes.
You might include videos, but don't put long videos. For example, you are asked to teach for 30 minutes and in your slide you have 15 minutes video. No. So short videos or activities. You can, in your PowerPoint, you can include activities. For example, I want to teach them response in nervous system. I want to teach them reflex action. You get what I'm trying to say? So you can include activities for them to support their learning to understanding reflex action. I'm just using all these topics as an example for those that their specialism is in science.
Science, yeah.
So make sure in your PowerPoint, in your lesson, you have engaging relevant materials such as text, images, videos, or activities that can support their learning. So after the first page where you have your topic, your date, your keywords, the next page, your retrieval question, then following page, your introduction to the topic, you're introducing the topic, and then you can now start including your relevant materials, your text, your images, your videos, and activities. And then number 4 point I will talk about is develop a clear structure. There must be a structure to your lesson. That's why we talk about the progression. It must be structured. Your lesson must be well structured. You are not putting the 3rd slide at the 8th slide. Now, please, I remember this. Your slide, you should not have too much slide. No. People make that mistake. You are being asked to teach for 40 minutes, you're having 47 slides. That's too much. So it's something that should be concise and precise. Concise and precise slides. As a matter of fact, you don't need to finish your slides while teaching. The most important thing is all students must be able to understand what you're trying to pass across.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not a must to finish everything you've got on your slide. If you can watch the previous episode we had, I mentioned that you might not even finish all your slides. Just make sure they understand, and then you don't waste too much time. For example, some people they are teaching across beyond the time they have been given, and then they are teaching up to the next period, which the students also have another lesson, which is not good. It's a demerit for your interview, which will not be good on your part. So develop a structure, how progressive your lesson is going to be. You don't need to make it cumbersome. You don't need to make it so complicated. Just make sure you develop so, and then you make it precise and concise for them to understand. Organize the lesson into introduction. So this is a clue for the structure. Introduction, direct instruction, guided practice, independent practice, and then assessment.
Yes.
So that is how you can develop a clear structure for your lesson. Start with introduction, direct instruction, guided practice, independent practice, and assessment. I can call the independent practice knowledge check. So you have knowledge check question. You've been assessing them formatively from the beginning. And then when it gets to the end of the lesson, towards the end of the lesson, you can have knowledge check questions. The knowledge check question will cut across everything you've been teaching from the beginning. And then finally, the assessment part can now be application of knowledge. So the questions will be different from the knowledge check. It will now be application of that knowledge. So for example, let's say you are teaching photosynthesis. In the knowledge check, you've asked them, what are the reactants during photosynthetic reaction? What are the products? What is needed? What pigment is needed for photosynthetic reaction to take place? And then in the application of knowledge, you are asking them, a student plant a bean seed in a tin and put it at the window. You know all those things. How will the seed grows, germinate, and develop? That's to apply the knowledge they have had about the photosynthetic reaction to that particular scenario. That's application of knowledge. So it's different from knowledge check. So don't be mistaken. It's not the same thing. So you have your knowledge check question and then your application of knowledge. So when you have one slide for knowledge check, when they are done with the knowledge check, they go to the application of knowledge. The application of knowledge might just be one question. It might just be one question because of time. And then when you are giving them these questions, give them times. For example, if you have 5 questions for knowledge check, you can give them 3 or 4 minutes to answer it. And then your application of knowledge, you can give them 3 minutes. That's why there should be a clear structure for your slide. So for each slide, you know how many minutes you are using on each slide. And then the next one is plan interactive activities. It is very important. You know, I mentioned engaging at the second point. Plan interactive. They want to see how you're interacting with students. That's why you have observers in your classroom. Are you really incorporating activities that encourage students to participate, collaborate, and lead them to critical thinking? Because the one of the main objective of a successful learning is critical thinking. So do you subject your student to critical thinking? You should not be the one to have a higher work rate than your students. They should have higher work rates than you as a teacher. So make sure in all your lesson planning, in your slides, you have what do I just call it now? Interactive activities for them. So plan interactive activities. There's no topic you want to teach without interactive activities. There's no, including history. You know, the last episode we had, I was talking about the history of DNA that I just taught some students recently, and then we were talking about Rosalind Franklin. We were talking about James Watson, Francis Crick, and then we were talking about how some people stole another person's structure of DNA to win the Nobel Laurel. We had an interaction about it. It was interactive. So I told them, how do you think we stole Rosalind Franklin's DNA image? And then they started thinking.